Hi folks, it's Dr. Brad Semp here, the Busyness Doctor and host of the Busyness TV show on busyness.com. Yes, there's lots of busyness in there, but this is the show dedicated to helping you to get out of busyness and get down to business. Today's episode is brought to us by petersprinciples.com. Peter Nielsen is a two-time Mr. Universe and fitness expert who helps you to educate yourself, empower, and motivate yourself to change your life, to take control of your health. So visit them right now at petersprinciples.com. In today's episode, I'm going to cover the Michigan State Spartans, and we're going to learn something from them. And then I'm going to talk about supertasking, and if you're a supertasker, you may want to reconsider after you hear what I'm about to present. And lastly, we'll wrap up with two personal stories where I sabotaged my buying power. And I'm going to share these with you so that you can avoid doing the same in the future. It's now time for our All BS segment. All BS segment is a segment in which I simply spout off about stuff. I pick a topic and I just go to town. So today's topic is my absolute most favorite sports team in the country. And that is the Michigan State Spartans. I'm a diehard Spartan fan, so is my wife. That's where we met, as a matter of fact. Going on almost 20 years ago now. But here's the fact. Michigan State basketball had a subpar year. And for all of you Wolverine fans out there, go ahead, get your jabs in now because it's not going to last. It was a one-year wonder. But Tom Izzo and the Spartans took an early exit out of the NCAA tournament last week. And it just so happened that they were playing in Tampa. So my wife and I headed over there to that game and watched an absolute dismal game. In fact, we have more about this later in the show. But here's what I want to cover. There's an article that was written after where one of the Detroit Free Press sports writers had talked to one of the major players, Green, Day Green, he goes by. But in Green basically said this. He said that there were times during the year in which the Spartans were, instead of working, they were hoping. And the reason that was because in the past, everything had went well for them. Michigan State, even though when they maybe had a subpar regular season, they get to March Madness and things would come together. They made 6 out of the past 13 Final Fours. An amazing accomplishment. But working is different than hoping. And from an action perspective, taking action is the only way to produce the results that you need to or want to achieve, that you set out to achieve. And from Draymond Green's perspective, that's exactly what he's saying. We got caught up in hoping instead of taking action that produces results. So just remember that. And I'd also like to point out there's a great book that was sent over to me by one of my clients as something that they given internally to their sales team. It's called Hope is Not a Strategy by Rick Page. So the 6 keys to winning the complex sale. So this is just something that no matter whether you're in life or in business, you're always selling. You're always trying to provide value to somebody and position yourself in win-win, synergistic ways. So this is a great read, whether you're a businessman or woman or not. Hope is Not a Strategy by Rick Page. So what do you think about that? What do you think about the Michigan State Spartans? Do you think they'll be back next year? But really, I'd love to hear your comments. So scroll down below, click on the link below, and submit a comment. I'd love to engage with you there. It's now time for our Effectivity segment. This is a segment in which we take a known fact or a statistic and dissect it and relate it to busyness. So today we have a statistic that was from May 2010, came from a study by the Psychonomic Bulletin and Review. Again, May 2010. And the statistic is that 2.5% of folks can multitask without performing worse at either task. So I'm not sure how many tasks here they compared. It sounds to me like it's 2. Think about it. How many tasks do you bring on at one time and try to multitask? Oftentimes more than 2, right? But let's just assume 2. 2.5% of folks can do that and not perform worse on either one. What does that mean? That means that the other 97.5% of us are going to suffer and perform worse at one or both of those tasks than if we were totally immersed, totally focused and dedicated at the task at hand. You folks, want to single task. You do not, as these folks call it, want to be a supertasker. You do not want to supertask. Single tasking gives you the focus. Just like our action units or AU planning method, get everything away from you, get all the distractions, shut down all conduits to you, and work in those 15-minute increments of action units. And you will see the increased productivity and output as a result. It's now time for our Buck the System segment. This is a segment in which we take a look at real-life examples where somebody bucks the system to produce extraordinary results or fails to buck the system to produce subpar results. Now, I have two personal examples that I'd like to share with you. The same thing happened to me. Even though I'm armed with all this knowledge and I understand, I've been in sales most of my life, I messed up. The last few weeks, I have two examples where I totally sabotaged my power as a buyer in the negotiation process. Number one, our pool screen out back needed to be repaired. We had 7 large panels and a whole bunch of smaller areas that were ripped or torn. They just need to be replaced. So I called out 3 companies. And the first company that came out gave me a price much higher than what I had anticipated, to my surprise. However, it was in the middle of my day. I was, quote, busy working on things, right? Because busyness is a transformation here. It's not that you're black and white, in it or out of it at all times. I was caught up in what I was working on. I really didn't have time to speak with this gentleman. I wanted to get the job done. So long story short, I ended up going with the business, with this gentleman. Canceled the other appointments simply because I didn't want to hold 2 more appointments. I lost my patience and therefore lost my buying power. I didn't go back and check. I just didn't want to know because I'm happy the screen's done, but I'm sure I probably paid a few extra $100 just because I sabotaged my buying power. Now, just last week, example number 2. I wanted to take my wife over to Tampa to watch the Michigan State Spartans play UCLA in the second round of the NCAA tournament. I didn't have tickets, but I knew we were only an hour and a half away. So that day, I decided to look for tickets. Now, I ended up buying them from an online ticket location and paid about $143 per seat. So it was about $300, just shy of $300 for my wife and I to head over there. Just the seats. Now, they're good seats. Row B, second row in the corner of the arena. And what I had intended to do before that was to go to Tampa and to buy tickets off the street. Because you know what? If we didn't get tickets, it's not a big deal. I'd spend a lovely evening with my beautiful bride, going to dinner, having a drink, or whatever we decided to do. It turns out that, again, I didn't want to deal with it. I didn't want to get over there and have the hassle of trying to find tickets. I hadn't been to a game in Tampa Bay before. I didn't know the landscape. So what did I do? Let's button this down. Let's get it taken care of right now. Let's pay the $143 a seat, which was great. And no complaints. My wife and I had an awesome time, even though the Michigan State Spartans lost. However, another gentleman from Michigan actually sat down beside us. So I happened to ask him in the course of the conversation, so where'd you get your ticket from? And he said, oh, I just bought it from a street vendor outside. Oh, that's awesome. What'd they get you for it? He says, $80. $80. I just kind of chuckled because, again, my lack of patience sabotaged my buying power. So don't let this happen to you. Put yourself in a position, have patience. Don't put yourself in the position where you need to buy right then and right there. Stay away from that, and you'll stay away from sabotaging your buying power. So what do you think about this? I'd love to hear your comments. Do you have similar examples of which you got caught up in the same thing that I got caught up in, allowing the busyness of your life to get in the way of making smart financial decisions? Tell me about it. Scroll down. I'd love to hear your comments. Now that ends the show for today. I'd like to thank you for watching episode number 12 of the Busyness TV show. I'd like to remind you that new episodes come out every Thursday. So each and every Thursday, and we'd love to notify you every time that a new show is released. And you can do so to receive the notifications by subscribing using your email address at busyness.com or by subscribing to our feeds at iTunes. I'd like to thank you very much and remind you to visit us at facebook.com/busyness TV,
as well as twitter.com/busyness TV. I'm Dr. Brad Semp, the Busyness Doctor. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Take care, and bye-bye.